The Oklahoma City Thunder punched back in game 2. In some cases, literally, very physical game, but the Thunder got control of it, and some players got injured. We're going to break it all down. And later on the show, Jonathan Macri of Knicks Film School is going to give us the inside scoop from the Knicks perspective on that series. All that and more on today's All-NBA show. What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All-NBA show powered by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com/AllCity. I'm your host, Adam Mares. I'm joined by my esteemed colleague.
Adam, freeze up.
Did I? Can you not hear
Here
me?
we go.
Did I freeze up?
You froze up on me. I don't know if everybody saw that, but for me, you did. All right, here you go. Now we're communicating.
Well, I said you're enjoying the Big Apple out there. And
I am enjoying the Big Apple, man. Yesterday was like 95 degrees, though. Today cooled off, a little drizzly out there. But it's amazing. I was around town yesterday, and it's amazing how much better of a mood people were in than they thought they were going to be with about 8 minutes left in that game. Everybody in the city, man, major sigh of relief as they get ready for game 2.
There's nothing like that, man. Like when your team is in a championship or a semifinal or something like that, you really can tell the whole city is happy. So, shout out to New York. They're feeling it.
Absolutely.
We are going to have Jonathan Macri later on in the show talking Knicks, but we're going to start with our FanDuel game breakdown as we always do. If you're new to this show, guys, all we do on this show is talk about the games, the actual games. And we start with the FanDuel game breakdown, and we're doing the game from last night. The Thunder beat the Spurs 122-113. This game saw some big adjustments from Oklahoma City. Where do you want to start with this, Legs? To me, the big story was Isaiah Hartenstein and his defense that he put on Wembanyama. But where do you want to go?
No, definitely there. That's the story of the game because, with what Wembanyama did to them in game 1, you were wondering what was the adjustment going to be. They decided to just go with Hartenstein on him as many possessions as they possibly could. Yep. And he got very physical with him. He did a great job getting him on his back on the offensive glass. He was pushing him off his spots. He just made his night a lot more difficult to move. Victor Wembanyama had a lot of space in game 1. He did not get much space in game 2, and it really obviously dramatically affected their offense. Turnovers are still a major issue for them as well. But I think that, to me, was the big story, and I think it will continue to be going forward because Mark Daigneault went to a lineup and went to a rotation that he did not expect to use going in. And he did it in game 2 to see if they could have a better effect on him. They clearly did. Let's see now what the Spurs do to counter that and to give Victor Wembanyama a little bit more space, particularly if and we don't know the situation with De'Aaron Fox, Dylan Harper yet, but it's possible you don't have either guy. And so that puts even more pressure. Stephon Castle has been turning the ball over a ton. So then his Wemby has got to have a big offensive game, I think, for them to survive. But how do they do that if Isaiah Hartenstein is going to play him as well as he did?
Let's put the injuries to the side because you also have Jdub as well who gets injured in this one. So injuries are a major storyline that I want to circle back to later on, but I don't want to start there because what I'll say is the thing that I think we will remember most about the Thunder from this run that they're on and maybe ongoing is just how deep they are, but how that depth provides a certain level of versatility. And we talked in the last round, Legs, about how I thought when we talk about how wide open the Thunder window is because of all the assets they have, the one area they don't have a ton of depth in is at center because Chet, as good as he is, he can only guard certain types of guys one-on-one because of his physical profile. But Hartenstein provides the other piece of this. And this is what, to me, was impressive about the Thunder in this game is they are able to maintain their core identity despite switching to a completely different style with a true big center on the court. And that, to me, it really is the defense, Shai's MVP level of play, all those things are going to be part of the equation. But the big equation is they can just shape shift and say, okay, this is the challenge we have. We have the pieces for it. And Hartenstein, to me, he's always been this underrated player. He can do so many things, but what I love about him is he doesn't try to do all things. He goes into this matchup and says, okay, Wembanyama, that's my assignment. I have to get physical with him. I have to push him off his spots. I have to keep him away from the rim and that rim pressure. And that's my entire focus this game. And he is capable of doing that. If the assignment was something different, he's capable of doing that. But he's capable of saying, what is it the thing I have to hone in on, and I'm going to do it. And he just did an elite job, especially of getting Wemby off of his spots and just slightly further from the basket. And then when he did get the ball, don't let him get comfortable. Make it hard for him and physical for him to try to make a move towards the basket.
Yeah, and I think that people that are Spurs fans thought, that they're trying to, I think, portray this as if it was, crossing the line with the physicality that Hartenstein was allowed to get away with. I didn't see it that way. I thought his body positioning was fantastic. This is the NBA playoffs. This is the conference finals. You're one step from the finals. There's going to be a lot of holding and grabbing all over the floor. Wow. Just because Victor Wembanyama is 7'5" and thinly built doesn't mean he's not going to be subjected to the same amount of contact that other guys are that play on the front line for these teams. I thought Hartenstein overall did a great job of anticipating what spot he had to be in to prevent Victor Wembanyama
100%
into those little pockets where he puts his hand up and then the delivery comes and he's dunking it before you have a chance to recover. He didn't allow him to have those types of situations because he anticipated where he wanted to go. In some cases, he had to fight him 2 or 3 times on the same possession. Yeah. And eventually, you know what the Spurs did? They got the ball to the other side of the floor, and they're going to have to go somewhere else because they can't eat up most of the shot clock trying to force the issue. And they're a deep team as well. They've got a lot of weapons also. So I just thought Hartenstein was the key. They clearly looked at the film and realized that, they cannot be steamrolled the way that they were in game 1 by this guy. What's the answer? The answer is this. And then if that wasn't going to work, I'm sure Mark Daigneault was going to have a third option he was going to go to. But So far, so good. So now going into game 3, it's almost like status quo. You stand pat until you see what the Spurs do to try to mix it up to get him touches in better spots.
And I think one of the big themes of this year's playoffs, Legs, is fatigue. And one of the things that Hartenstein does by virtue of his ability to play physical, I love your point about beating him to spots because I think this is one of the best, most important things about defense is the anticipation. Where are they trying to go? And can I just make them take the long route on everything and get physical? So it's a longer route and you have to wrestle just to get there. Hartenstein did such a good job of this the entire night. And I think that the fatigue was a factor because now you're not getting the easy stuff. You're not getting anything easy. Every possession requires 100% of your energy. You're just coming off of a game you played 47 minutes. And I think this is why the series can be interesting. Oklahoma City wears you down. Minnesota wears you down. This is part of their game plan. And I think in this game, understandably so to some degree, the Spurs wore down. And they got the fatigue clearly was affecting them down the stretch in a way it was not affecting Oklahoma City because of their depth. And so that's something I'm looking for now going forward as this series extends, as we all expect, 6-7 games. Does one of these teams diminish over that stretch? And last night I thought Wemby did down in the end portion of the game.
Well, I think one thing that was key in this game, there was 124 minutes played off the bench by the Thunder. That's an incredible number for any team in any postseason game, much less when you're down 1-0 in the conference finals and you've already lost home court advantage in the first game. Most coaches shorten the rotation. They trust fewer guys. 124 minutes off the bench. And you look at what did the Spurs have? 66. So they basically doubled up bench minutes and you still get the win. That speaks directly to what you're talking about, the trust factor and the depth. Obviously, McCain didn't have a great shooting night, but I just think he's such a threat that he helps. You talk about a confident offensive player, man. That guy does not care about the last 3 misses. He's going to hunt down the next shot every single time. I still sometimes watch him play, and I can't believe that the Thunder ended up with him for what they gave up from Philly to get that guy. And now here he is playing 26 minutes in an absolute must-win situation. In this round, you got 28 minutes out of Ajay Mitchell. And I think he's going to be absolutely critical now going forward with the Jalen Williams situation. He's going to be even more important. So I think your point is great, man. The depth, both teams are considered to be really deep. Oklahoma City took that depth to a whole nother level in game 2.
I mean, Legs, I didn't even notice this until you just pointed it out. But Shai, I mean, he's obviously the one irreplaceable guy on their lineup. He plays 38 minutes. Nobody else played more than 28. That's kind of wild. When you look at the Spurs side of it, you've got all of your starters besides Dylan Harper, who got hurt. That's why he didn't play. They all played more than 36 minutes. And on Oklahoma City's side, you're able to just cycle through. And when we talk about the speed, this series, in my opinion, is a lot about speed versus strength. Both teams have both speed and, to some degree, strength. But San Antonio has the advantage, I think, in size, especially when they're healthy. That's why Harper, we'll talk about it in a second, him going out might change that equation a little bit. But Oklahoma City has the advantage in speed. And part of, if you're going to play speed, you have to have a lot of guys to cycle through so they can all play at full intensity, and they were able to do that. So that's a big one. And then Hartenstein, last thing on him, 8 offensive rebounds from him. So it's two ways. Like, he just understands the assignment. Part of this is wearing him out. So defensively, get physical, make him work, all this. And then on the offensive end, no possessions off. Every offensive rebound has to be accounted for. And you know this, Legs, when you're, especially in a playoff game, and when you're that focused on all the details and everything matters, defensive rebounding is the last thing, because it's literally the last part of getting a stop. And if you're on your heels for a second, then the whole thing falls apart. And Hartenstein provided that 8 times with a second chance opportunity.
That's why even guys I will point out throughout the course of the season and their careers, maybe in some cases, that are maybe not considered great ball screen defenders as a big guy. Like, they're not super mobile. They're not even shot blockers necessarily, but they're great defensive rebounders. Guys like that are so important, because that is how you conclude a possession. There's nothing worse than expending 18, 20 seconds of defensive energy, miss a shot, and then have to play it again for 18 to 20 seconds more. That is what gasses you. So for Hartenstein to get on the offensive glass and give them repeated opportunities, it wears you down from a team standpoint. So I think the other thing about this Hartenstein dynamic, by doing what they did and making it Hartenstein as the primary matchup with Wemby, and like that was the focal point as much as you possibly could. You know what they did? They also diffused a little bit the whole Wemby Chet thing. And I think that was with what happened in game 1, like in the look on Chet's face on the bench, this incredible game that Wemby had, that iconic picture where he's standing there posing and all his guys on the bench are looking at him like he's a god.
Awesome photo.
Right. It's one of the greatest still shots you're ever going to see. Right. But I think if that goes into game 2 and it's still about the Chet Wemby matchup, that's like a lot for Chet Holmgren to carry around. Yeah. This deflected that, at least even if it was just internally for the Thunder. I think it helped Chet Holmgren. And he didn't have a monster game, but it wasn't like you were talking about him getting overwhelmed the way that you did in the first game. That might help him going forward. So it's almost like in some ways you turn Hartenstein over to him, not as a sacrificial lamb because you're expecting him to play well, but you're not making it about this head-to-head thing and all the baggage and how much these guys don't like each other and this, that, and the other. You take that off the table a little bit by making the matchup more about a different guy with Wemby, and I think that helped Chet a little bit. He looked a little bit more relaxed in this game than he did in game 1.
Well, moving on from Hartenstein, but the last thing is just that I do think that when we talk about the Thunder brilliance, if you lose him, as I kind of anticipate this offseason, they do have to find somebody to replace him, and I think he is the best backup center option out there. So almost no matter, and I know he starts a lot too, but there's almost no one you can replace him with that would give you what he gives you, and that's going to be something interesting to watch with roster construction with the Thunder going forward. How much resources do they put towards that center position? Let's move on, though, now. Let's talk about Alex Caruso, who might be the MVP of the series so far through two games. The ultimate playoff riser, 3 of 4 from 3 again, 5 of 7, 17 points, gives you 5 assists on top of that, and obviously the defense. It's just 2 games, Legs. I mean, this could obviously change, but as far as role players go, that's about as perfect of a 2-game stretch as one role player can have.
It's the 2 greatest back-to-back playoff games he's ever had, that's for sure. 48 points in 2 games. Look, they lose game 1, but I mean, that's a 20-point loss without Alex Caruso doing what he did to keep them in that game. He follows it up with 17 more. I mean, it's just not what he's known for. Clearly, he's capable. He's an NBA player. But that's not even remotely what they need him for. That's not what he's known for. It's one of the best pound-for-pound, toughest defensive players in the league now, and really, honestly, of the last decade. Like, that's how good he is defensively, how disruptive, the winning player. But when you go ahead and chip in this kind of 3-point shooting that he's giving you right now, it's such a bonus because there's a reason he plays under 20 minutes a night for the Thunder. Now, it's not just the depth. No, it's seriously like,
I know
if you have a guy that can't score, but he's a great defender, I got news for you, man. There's going to be nights when the coach has to get the guy off the floor because you're going to need scoring punch, right? So when on those nights when he is able to do what he did, these last 2 games, it gives you the opportunity to keep him out there. He's averaging 28 and a half minutes a game in the 2 games. He averaged 19 minutes a game on the season. There's a reason. It's because some nights you go, okay, let's go in a different direction. You need scoring. And Alex, great job. You pat him on the butt. He goes, sits down, and you put in a guy that can shoot. Well, when he does both, now you're not giving up anything on the other end of the floor, and his value is exponentially greater because he's more possessions he gets to disrupt defensively. So can't say enough about what this guy's done. I don't know how long this is going to last, when he continues to shoot the ball like this, but hey, ride it while you can. They're not sitting here at 1-1 without him.
Do you think, because that is the question, how long will this shooting last? They are giving him open looks. If you're San Antonio, do you adjust that at all? Do you just look at this and say, hey, man, he's going to knock him down? He's the one that we're going to have to treat more like a shooter now.
Honestly, I think if you're the Spurs, you kind of treat it as there's going to be a, return to the mean. Like at some point, he's going to miss 3 in a row. And at that point, maybe it's like done for the night for him. Him coming in and hitting his first shot, like right away, like the way he has, it's you can just see the confidence that this guy is playing with right now. He's still going to be super valuable whether he makes shots or not. But when he does, it's a whole nother problem. But I don't think you adjust if you're the Spurs. I think all of a sudden you say to yourself, okay, we got to be more cognizant of where he is, step closer on the closeouts. I don't think you're worried as much about that. I think at some point you think maybe these shooting percentages come back to what is more normal for Alex Caruso, but give the guy all the credit in the world, man. It's just insane watching him shoot like this on top of the other stuff that he does.
We got 15 minutes in before we even mentioned SGA, who's probably almost certainly the player of the game. 30 points from him, 9 assists, 1.3 points per direct pick, 1.3 points per direct ISO, 1.46 points per direct drive. Just an incredibly efficient game from him. And Legs, if you go back and rewatch all of the shots, he's not getting good ones. Like, he's actually stepping up and just making some really tough baskets, which at this stage of the playoffs is what you need your best player to do. I still think that you're probably trying to find ways to get him a little bit of cleaner looks, but last night he showed that he can make some tough ones when they matter and when they shift the momentum of the game.
I just thought he played tougher and stronger last night. I thought his concentration level was superior. I didn't think necessarily that he got off to the start he wanted to in game 1, and it kind of kept him there. You knew he was going to be super aggressive. I mean, he might get 30 every night in this series going forward because he's that good of a scorer. He's so rarely inefficient, and that's what was so surprising about game 1. I don't care what defense you're playing. He's played against the best defenses this league has to offer, and he still does it every single night efficiently. Kind of expected what he did last night, and I thought even maybe he'd have more because he didn't get to the line as much as he normally does, and he had a 50% shooting night. That typically, if he goes 20-plus shots and he shoots 50%, he's usually in that 35-point range, 38-point range because he gets to the line 10, 12 times, 14 times. He only got there 6 times. He didn't make a 3. So, some of the other ways that, those numbers start to inflate, he didn't really do that. This was pretty much all mid-range pull-ups and a couple of finishes at the rim. He was getting to his spots. He knew they needed a big night from him. He played through it. And it's amazing the way your team, I think, just gains confidence when your best player is operating against an elite defense and he looks normal. He's doing his normal stuff. Everybody sort of settles down, man, because you can just stay in your lane. You don't have to do too much.
I think this is such an underrated point, and it's so much about what the playoffs are about. Sometimes the whole team comes down to the confidence of one guy. Like, you have to start it off. You have to show, hey, I've got this. And that's honestly why we judge great players the way we do, is if the table is not set for anybody, you have to step up and make some tough shots. And I thought he did a great job of this. Let's go to the other side now and talk about the Spurs. Stephon Castle, to me, is the biggest, I don't want to call him an X factor because it's above that, but it's also not the main factor. But his ability, this series, we talk about speed versus strength. Castle represents that balance because his strength is what stands out against their pressure guards. He has the physicality to still score, get to the paint, stay on balance. But he does have an enormous amount of turnovers, which lead to the speed portion of this the other direction. So in this series, he's turning the ball over at an insane rate, 20 turnovers through 2 games, 11 last one, 9 this one. And those turnovers matter. 55 points off of turnovers for Oklahoma City in 2 games. A lot of those are coming off of his. And so now I think especially if Dylan Harper and Fox are out, we'll talk about that in a second. Castle's ability to score and be effective without turning the ball over might be the deciding battleground in the series. He lost that battleground really in both games, but in game 2 it cost him.
I think you're 100% right, and it's almost everything for the Spurs in game 3. And I don't know if you saw anything. I didn't look this morning to see any data on this. I'm sure somebody's putting it out there. Has any guard ever turned the ball over 20 times in two games in the playoffs?
Nope.
Ever?
He set a record. Yeah, he set a new record.
Okay, so I didn't know. What was Harden's?
18.
Probably wasn't even close to that. Oh, he did
18.
18. Okay.
Yeah, it was close.
20. He had as many turnovers in game 2 as the entire Thunder team.
Oof.
Okay, by himself.
Yeah.
And it just can't happen. As much as I love him, and I do love him, I love his game. I love his toughness. I love how serious he is. It's all business with him. The power, all that. He's improved his shooting, but you cannot be turning the ball over at this rate. You're just really not giving your team enough of a chance to win. So, and if you take Dylan Harper off the table, and we don't know that yet, but I don't think it looks great. You know, we talk about these hamstrings, man, these soft tissue injuries. These aren't the kind of thing you just go ahead and play the next game. Fox, he has this high ankle sprain. We're waiting on him. He could play in game 3. I don't know, but if not, Stephon Castle has like almost all of the initial ball handling responsibilities on his plate. Jordan McLaughlin played well last night. Give him credit because he was, kind of surprising minutes, and he contributed. So he'd obviously have to play a little bit more. But that is an enormous responsibility for a young guard that's turning the ball over this much. And now you go, okay, you also now these two other guys that are going to help you handle this pressure, they're off the table for you. So let's see how that plays out. If those guys don't play, that is the single biggest factor in game 3. Because here's the thing, if he turns it over at a high rate again, and he doesn't have the help of other guys initiating offense, you drop that game, you've given home court right back. And the one thing I always say in these best of 7s, if you get the split on the road, the one thing you can't do is give it right back.
Right.
If they win game 3 and then they lose game 4, it does feel different as you're changing venues. If you give it right back to them, now going into game 4, there's an enormous amount of pressure on you at home, down 2-1. So that's why game 3 is so pivotal in this series, and he may have to be Castle out there by himself handling the basketball.
And I'm curious about that part with him because, all right, they get 27 points off of turnovers. The Oklahoma City Thunder do in this game, and they win by 9. That it really is the margin in this series. But in this game, I think part of what is going in favor of a young team like San Antonio is that they're so young, the pressure's not quite there for them in a certain way, because it feels like you have a lot of time. This year is almost house money in some ways. I know they're trying to win, but now Castle, to your point, he gets to play a little loose, a little free. And I think I see that with all of the young San Antonio guards where they get to play this aggressive, almost carefree style. If you're without Fox and Harper going into the next game and you know that turnovers might determine it, I'm very curious how aggressive Castle is versus conservative, don't turn it over. It's really hard to get all of the good things of a player like Castle without the bad things when you say, hey, this bad thing is going to kill us. So that's my big question for him is if your responsibility goes up, if you're more of the focus now and you're more of the pressure, can you stay aggressive and cut turnovers? Not just cut turnovers, but scale down your role, which might be in one hand out the other.
It's hard for a young player, but particularly when, and I don't know how much he's going to pay attention to the chatter, but there's going to be an awful lot of scrutiny around these turnovers going into game 3. 20 in 2 games is like Sergi said, it's record setting. So he's obviously thinking about it, whether he's listening to, sports talk radio or he's watching TV and getting some of the criticism that's probably coming his way or not. It's in his own head. He knows what's happening. He's frustrated with himself with the turnovers. So you're right. That is a difficult line to walk. How do you maintain that, absolute foot on the pedal accelerator and that sort of energy and force you play with while also being able to make sure you're more careful with the ball, better ball security? That's a hard line to walk. Maybe he should call up a guy like Russell Westbrook. Give Russell Westbrook a call if you're Stephon Castle and ask him how he was able to do it. Because, think about it. Westbrook would have these incredible games, but, the turnovers, the shot selection to a certain extent, but it's like he would make up for it. And I think Westbrook would probably tell him, you know what? Don't even think about it. Just go do your thing. Forget the turnovers, man. You do so many other things in the court to help us win. Hopefully Castle can think that way and not play more cautiously or conservatively because they need him to, physically play the way he typically does and being in the paint as much as he is.
That dunk, by the way, probably a top I mean, easily top 5 dunk of the entire year, but it's possible it was dunk of the year. I'd have to go back and remember the candidates, but that thing,
for me, I always look at it like I put them in 2 separate categories. The ones that you see after the fact, because you hear about it and then you go pull up the highlight. Total different feel than when you're watching it happen as it happens.
Great take.
And that's one of the greatest dunks I've ever seen as I was watching the game. Every now and then you get those ones that make you yell out. I think I yelled out in my hotel room.
Same.
And, everybody probably that was watching the game in this hotel probably yelled out at the same time because it was like just absolute malicious, And so, yeah, man, and that's what this guy can give you, man. He's that special of an athlete.
Aesthetically pleasing too. Like, it's not just a power dunk. It's somehow his body looked just perfect doing it. It was insane, man.
The only person who didn't like the look of that was Isaiah Hartenstein.
That's the price you pay, man.
He didn't like how that looked all that much.
It's one of those things where if you're playing against Wemby in particular, your odds of getting dunked on go way up, either by him or just because you're sticking so close to him that you're late to rotate and you're going to get dunked on. So it's true. The last piece of this are the injuries, man. And I know I don't want to spend too much time on just this, but I am going to start by saying these are the 2 most athletic and young teams in the NBA. And yet Jdub's out. Harper's out, Fox is out. I'm just watching this and I'm going, I don't think anybody can survive NBA basketball anymore. The game has evolved beyond the human ability. And if we can lose 2 players in one game that are just both young, it's scary. But now that we analyze it, Harper being out and Jdub being out, I think actually shifts is actually more of damage to San Antonio than it is to OKC for this one reason. I think Castle and Harper, they create the size advantage for San Antonio that OKC can't bridge. When it's just Castle, all of a sudden the speed tilts in the favor, and guys like Ajay Mitchell become more impactful. He was more impactful in the second half of this game than he was in the first 3 quarters of the series. And so now I think you look at this and say, Ajay Mitchell, I would expect if Harper can't go, he might have a very good game or 2 while they're waiting for him to get back. And so I look at this and say, Harper, to me, shifts the entire series. It looked like it wasn't that bad, but Harper's ability to play with speed and power puts pressure on Oklahoma City that if that goes away, they lose one of their most important pressure points in the series. And I think I would shift everything over to OKC if that's the case.
I agree with that also, by the way. Now, Jalen Williams was a guy who was incredible in the finals a year ago, but they just went an extended stretch without him. They kind of figured out the rotation, responsibilities. They won games. Like, they just did it for a really long period of time. But pretty much most of the season, they haven't really had him. So it's not a dramatic adjustment to go back to not having Jalen Williams. Ajay Mitchell's the key guy. For me, that is the guy that I'm looking at going into Game 3 as the X factor. Like, Ajay Mitchell's capable of having a 20-plus point game in Game 3. So he's, to me, is the guy that could tip it in OKC's favor if you don't get Harper out there. I don't know yet what's going to happen with Fox, but listen, to only be left with one primary ball handler who's having all kinds of issues taking care of the basketball right now is a major factor against a team that puts more pressure on the basketball than any team in the NBA. More guys on Oklahoma City Thunder can press up and not get beat than any team in this league on the perimeter. When you can run that many different guys at a young guard that's having problems holding on to the ball and he doesn't have anywhere else to go with it, if both of those guys don't play, no question. This is significantly more impactful to the Spurs to not have Dylan Harper, particularly, I think, than it is for OKC to play right now without Jalen Williams because they've almost gotten used to that.
Yeah. And if Jdub was around all season, I don't think this would be the case. He would be more, as important.
No doubt.
More.
No question about it. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, it's all context, man. They barely had the guy most of the year. Other people have gotten added responsibilities. Yeah. They've handled it well. Ajay Mitchell has come into his own. So, yeah, you're okay there. And they've got multiple guys that can initiate offense with their live dribble. San Antonio really does not if those guys don't play.
Yeah. All right, let's take a break. On the other side, we're going to have Jonathan Macri of Knicks Film School to tell us what he is seeing in this Knicks series, what helped them get that comeback, and if the series from here shifts back to Brunson ball. Do the Knicks have an identity that they needed for the previous 2 rounds, but now it's the old identity coming back? We'll get to that on the other side. away, and it's the most electric time in basketball. On Kalshi, you can trade every single playoff game, every series, the conference finals, and the championship. And right now, after last night, I keep giving you these updated odds. OKC is trading at 49% to win the NBA championship. San Antonio's at 31%. They didn't drop as much as I thought they would, by the way. I think they were up to 39 yesterday, 31. With Dylan Harper out, I feel like that I'm starting to worry about my position here. New York at 19%. They got a little bit of a bump here. If these two teams beat the heck out of each other. Cleveland down to 3%. That feels high. Right now, on Kalshi, you're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there's no house. And as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your position for a limited time. Download the Kalshi app and use our code. This is important. All NBA, all one word, to get $10 when you trade 10. KALSHI, Kalshi. Trade on anything. 18 plus only. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Event contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see kalshi.com/regulatory. Also want to tell you guys about Underdog Fantasy. The NBA playoffs, they're finally here. Underdog is the best place to get in on all of the action. Playing on Underdog is easy. Just pick whether your favorite players will go higher or lower on stats like points, rebounds, steals, and more. If you get your picks right, you could win up to 5,000 times your cash. Here's what I'm going with. I always build a roster for you. For tonight's game, Jalen Brunson, 27.5 points higher. It kind of tips where I'm going in the next segment. I think this will be a Brunson ball type game. Landry Shamet, 5.5 points. I'm going higher. That's so low. Just needs to hit 2 threes. He hit 3 of them last game. Jared Allen, 7.5 rebounds. I'm going to go higher there as I think the series shifts a little bit more to those key pieces. Download the app today and use promo code ALLNBA to score $50 in bonus entries when you play your first $5. That's promo code ALLNBA. Underdog, make picks, win money. Must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama, Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Arizona, Massachusetts, and Virginia, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-MY-RESET or 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. Arizona, 1-800-NEXT-STEPS or text NEXT STEPS to 53342. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Back here, segment 2 of the All-NBA show, and let's now welcome in our guest, Jonathan Macri of Knicks Film School. I'm watching his shows when I'm prepping for Knicks games. I'm watching portions of them. They're like 3 hours long. But he's got everything you need to know about the Knicks. How you doing, Jonathan?
Doing good. Caught up on a little bit of sleep yesterday after I think I got 2 hours after that game because we were indeed on until about 3 a.m. But it was worth it. That was one of the great not only comebacks in Knicks history, but just flat out one of the best wins that the franchise has had this century. So excited to talk about how they could hopefully keep it going.
Yeah, so on that, man, walk me through how you're feeling with 8 minutes to go in the game. Because this did feel like, are you compartmentalizing it and saying, okay, it's rust, we've been off for so long, whatever, game one, you dropped game one, it's nothing. Like, where were you at to that point? Because I think the comeback was important. Obviously, it mattered more. But the first 3 quarters also mattered. So where were you at that point?
I think I was just very frustrated because for me, watching the first half, and Tim, you talked about a lot of this stuff before the series even started. We saw all of the things on both sides of the ball that you anticipated Cleveland doing. So then the question was going to be, what kind of adjustments would they come out of halftime with? And it almost seemed as if coming out in the third quarter, they let their frustrations get the better of them, and they completely went away from shooting threes. I think they shot less than a handful of threes in the third quarter after going very, not making anything in the first half. And then they just kind of got sloppy and a little bit unintelligent, I want to say, on both sides of the ball. Some of their doubles, if you could even call it that, when they were on defense, were like half-hearted. There would be two players in the vicinity of the Cleveland ball handler as opposed to a hard double. Now, I think they should move away from doubles entirely and go with more of a hard hedge moving forward, which, by the way, you saw a little bit of that down the stretch. So that was a little strange. And then on the offensive side of the ball, it was like, all right, the Cat as hub thing isn't working, so we're just kind of going to give it to Cat and let him try to create, out of thin air. And that's never been a formula that has worked against this particular Cleveland defense. And so, and then obviously it took a little bit of a while to pivot off of Hart. So yeah, it was frustrating to that point, but the thing with this team is, they're never completely out of a game until the final buzzer sounds. And I think some of the things that they did down the stretch certainly worked. I'll be curious to see how much of that they lean into from the opening to moving forward here.
So I'm sitting there watching the Cavs defensively against the Knicks for the first, basically 3 quarters. Not as much. Actually, their defense was pretty good in the first quarter as well. Their offense was terrible. But the Cavs defensively were clearly locked in on the way that the Knicks had been running their offense during this winning streak, starting in the middle of the Atlanta series. Philly, I don't know how much you can even take from that, but clearly they were not going to be guarded by the Sixers. And it was a different style. And I think that's what the Cavs were honed in on. And their communications on their switches, for the most part, were so tight. They weren't getting beat on weak side slashes and cuts when Cat had the ball. Even his line of vision wasn't as good because these are bigger dudes in front of him with their hand up, more mobile with Mobley or Allen. So the Cavs did a great job with that. And here you go. They're up 22. Everything's going to perfection. They finally started making some threes, and one of those teams is going to start. The Cavs did. The Knicks still hadn't at that point. And here we go, 8 minutes to go. And I think it's almost as if the Knicks going back to like the original Brunson offense when he first got to New York was like almost like not what the Cavs were prepared to defend, because there's no way that you can allow him to operate the way that he did for as long as he did before you started at least thinking about, hey, some soft double teams, which they weren't even all out blitzes. They were like half double teams, which is to me the worst thing you could do defensively against an isolation player. But so I just think it caught them almost off guard in that they weren't ready for this just Jalen Brunson high ball screen ISO stretch. And so they just allowed Harden to guard them. And they're thinking, okay, they can't come back unless they get some 3-point shooting. Let's see how many tough twos Brunson can make. Well, how about 5 in a row? Yeah. At that point, do you start to go, okay, hold on, which is what they did. And that's when now they're totally at the mercy of the Knicks because they didn't have a very clean-cut double team idea for him. And that's when the 3-point shooting kicked in, and the rest is history. But I thought the Cavs were great defensively against what we thought the Knicks offense was going to look like. When the Knicks went back to that Brunson heavy ISO stuff, the Cavs didn't know what they were going to do. It's like they hadn't even talked it out, and they just left James Harden on this island. And here you go, man. Brunson got him going, and then the 3-point shooters kind of ended it.
And look, I think if you're looking at the series moving forward, despite the fact that that was obviously a great win, if you're looking at the different battlegrounds that the series is going to be decided on, I still think the Cavs showed you more positives in those different areas than maybe the Knicks did. The thing was Jalen Brunson, who, I couldn't believe this when I looked it up. You look at 38-plus point playoff games over the last 4 years since he's been a Knick. He has 13. The next highest guy is Nikola Jokic with 7. And this guy has the ability to just make tough shots, not look easy, but look comfortable. And
they look easy though, man. I'm going to go ahead and say, he said, like you said, he made 5 in a row. I thought it was 11. I thought you were joking when you said 5 because it felt like 11, but yeah.
But he, you think, all right, small guy, he's going to wear down. He's shown the ability in these games to take the load and kind of carry it for most of 4 quarters, which is why I think, when you were alluding to it earlier, Adam, you're going to see more of this, right out of the gate. Now, granted, he had to make all the tough shots, and Landry Shamet and Mikal Bridges, they basically didn't miss from 3 anytime they got an opportunity as well. What I find interesting about what Cleveland did is they were not, and they don't usually because Harden's involved, they don't fight these switches. They welcome the switches. You barely even need to set a screen. And, I'm curious if there is an adjustment there at all. And then on the Cat piece of it, it was obvious that what worked of the last 2 defensive teams that they faced was not going to work here. Philly had obviously myriad issues with Embiid defensively, but for as great as the defense as the Hawks were during the end of the regular season, they did not have the personnel equipped to counter that. So my biggest question on the offensive end is how much or how quickly do they pivot away from Josh Hart if Josh Hart doesn't come out and hit 2 of his first 3 threes tonight? And then what are you doing with Cat? Is this just going to be a series where Cat has to make an impact on the offensive glass, as a 3-point shooter? We saw him take 5 threes. I'd like that to be a little bit more. I think that probably needs to be a little bit more for him to be at his most effective. Because I think, if you look over the last few years since he's been a Knick, other than Oklahoma City, I don't know that there's a defense that has flustered him as consistently as this Cleveland defense. They do a really good job against him. So because Brunson's amazing, but with OG maybe not all the way back yet, there's going to need to be someone else on the Knicks offense who you could reliably kind of give the ball to and say, all right, this is a way for us to generate offense.
So this is one of my big questions, though, about this Brunson. I mean, it was Brunson ball that saved the game, and it was, you're able to go 5 out or 4 flat, basically, and clear out space for him to do his thing. And the reason you can do that, as you alluded to, is that you go away from Hart, you go to Shamet. How much do you think they should go to that? Because I don't know if you're going to win a game with 48 minutes of Brunson ball. It almost works nicely that you can close the game like that. But how much do you think they try to pick spots now and say, Hart, this might not be your full series. You're going to have a Caruso roll. 20 minutes go really hard, but we're going to lower your minute totals and go to some other looks. How much do you anticipate that being the case?
I mean, I think part of that depends on how Hart comes out of the gate. He was asked about it yesterday, and he says, look, I know they're going to leave me open again. And he's a guy that unfortunately could get in his own head a little bit, and he's been open about that. So we'll see, first couple opportunities he has to shoot it. Does he shoot it? Does he immediately attack the closeout, or I guess lack of a closeout? The one thing that can be a little bit frustrating is you see at times, and I went through the film yesterday and spotlighted a handful of them, where even when you have the coverage that the Cavs were giving them with, whether it's usually Allen playing far off of him, they could flip that around and use that to their advantage, whether it's because of how they space the floor or just being creative with whether you get Hart up there as a screener, which is something Jalen Brunson has had a lot of opportunity to get used to over the last few years, or just have Hart as the ball handler and kind of use that soft coverage against the defense. I don't think the solution is to completely go away from Josh Hart because he's too valuable to your team. He's too important in transition. He's too good on the boards. I will say this about Mike Brown. There were times in the Atlanta series where I thought he maybe adjusted too quickly before he needed to adjust, and that might have cost them games 2 and or 3 of that series. Since then, I think his adjustments in these series have been pretty on point. I would not expect, if we're 5 minutes into this game tonight and the Knicks are sitting there with 7 or 8 points or something, and the offense again looks like a clogged toilet, I don't think he'll hesitate. I think he will go away, from Hart and then save Hart for the minutes where it's with Brunson, but also with Mitchell Robinson, because it might seem counterintuitive. Okay, you're putting 2 non-spacers on the floor at the same time. Brunson with Hart and Mitchell Robinson and not Cat, and he's very comfortable in that offense. So, maybe start the second quarters with, or they usually start second quarters with Cat, but just maybe run that for a little bit. Because again, you can't go completely away from Hart, but you got to just be smart about where you're deploying him.
I think the first half of this game is going to tell you all you need to know about what's going to happen here going forward this series, because I really want to see, number one, the Knicks are going to play better offensively. You would expect out of the gate. It took them forever to start making shots in this game. If you're the Cavs, that's why this is the one that, and I know you have to try to brush it off and say all the right things after the game.
How?
You know what I mean? It's just one loss. Like, come on, man. You got a 22-point lead. You've got your hands around a win, and it's a race to 4. And you win that game, you now make it so that you don't need to win another game in New York. If you hold home court, you win the series at that point. To let that go on a night when the Knicks turn the ball over 17 times, they can't make a 3 to save their life. They still only ended up with 10, but man, were those big ones that they made when they had to have it late, but they still only made 10 on the night. OG Anunoby clearly not close to what he was prior to the injury. Now, what I'm curious to see is that just get that first one out of the way. He really didn't go full throttle until he tried to dunk the ball. Yep. I don't know if that was end of regulation or overtime, when he really tried to extend and like pounded on somebody.
That was OT,
that was the only time we really saw him, because Richard and I were talking about that. Like he looked kind of like he was, gingerly kind of going, not because he was hurt, but because he didn't want to test it, maybe because he wants to be out there for the duration of this run. I think now, one game under his belt, I think OG Anunoby is going to be a lot better tonight at the start. I just think the Knicks are going to be better in general. So the question is going to be, how do the Cavs respond to that? Because if you come out and you get up 6-8 in the first quarter, I think you're going to be able to put game one behind you. And they did a lot of really good things in game one. And I think at that point, maybe we get a nail biter. Maybe the Cavs steal a game. I think the start's really important, man. If you get behind 8-10, Anunoby makes a couple of threes, their team just looks better offensively. Then maybe losing game one starts to kind of recirculate in your brain. and the Knicks, get going and steamroll somebody. I'm really curious to see how the first quarter and first half of this game plays out.
Yeah, and the shoe was on the other foot this time last year because in game, the Knicks had game 2 at home after that heartbreaker, and they were never able to do what you're saying. And look, you look back, hindsight's always 20/20, but if they had found a way to get back on track in game 2 last year, it might have been a different series. I'm happy you brought up OG Anunoby because I thought one of the key adjustments, and a lot of people in my neck of the woods have been talking about it, was putting him on Jarrett Allen late in that game. So you kind of try to neuter what is the Cavs' preferred pick and roll. I think that was, or pick and roll combination, bringing Allen up to the screen. And then you live with Karl-Anthony Towns on Evan Mobley, which I think for a variety of reasons is something that makes sense as well. I wonder if that is a pivot that the Knicks go to earlier again to try to neuter that pick and roll right off the bat. But that's also asking a lot of a guy who is coming off of the injury that OG's coming off of. And then the other thing, I guess, that I'm curious about right out of the gate, Donovan Mitchell, I don't want to say that he was a like a passenger in the fourth quarter there.
He was.
But
I'll say Donovan Mitchell was a passenger in the fourth quarter.
Quiet.
Was that legs or not you legs? Was that his legs being tired? Was that his legs being tired coming off of a 7-game series? I don't know, but there was one possession where Mitchell had the ball, and finally, as they were setting the screen to bring Brunson into the action, Brunson went with the hard hedge and recover. And I was like, okay, that's it. That's where we have to go. I think if I'm the Cavs, I try to bring I'm handling the ball with Mitchell because I'm not tempting the Knicks to, all right, it's Harden, we're just going to switch that. I don't think you could switch Brunson onto Mitchell from the start of the game. I think that's asking way too much, and it's letting Mitchell get way too comfortable. So I'm seeing how the Knicks react by bringing Brunson into the action early. And then the only other question I would have on Cleveland's behalf is how quickly do you pivot away from Dean Wade? I know Dean Wade made a couple of threes in that game, but if you're setting that screen with Dean Wade, it makes it a little bit easier or for the Knicks to handle that as far as helping off. Do they bring Maryland a little bit earlier? Because then all of a sudden, that dude, he only needs a split second to get it up. So we'll see what the Cleveland Cavaliers do on that end of the floor.
Well, here's what I want to say about Cleveland. And I think one thing is, do you think about that Brunson run, which turned the entire game on its head? They don't win the game unless he gets that thing going right there and gave the building belief for a second, gave his team belief. You can't go that long a stretch without Strus or Wade on the floor because they're the two preferred defenders on Brunson. So that's one thing that Kenny Atkinson is going to be looking at. Now, again, if the Knicks are running their normal style offense they've been running, not as important. If they start to bog down and now they're going to mostly high ball screen and Brunson, you have to have one of those guys in the game because you don't want Mitchell picking up fouls guarding him. Obviously, Harden can't guard him. Merrill, Schroeder, Ellis are too small. You have to have bigger, stronger guys that have a little bit more length that can bother Brunson a little bit in that mid-range, those little step backs he likes to shoot from 18 feet. I just thought the fact that they went as long as they did without those guys on the floor, he finally got Strus back in the game, and he had a big three, and then he went down and he was guarding Brunson again there at the end. You can't, if you're Kenny Atkinson, you can't get caught like that if they go to that style offense. So I'm curious to see his rotations. The other thing is he said going in, I'm expanding my rotation because we just played 7 games, 2 series in a row. We had 1 day off for the next series. And by expanded rotation, that meant giving Keon Ellis 5 points. If it's me, I'm going with Jalen Tyson. Jalen Tyson's bigger. He's got an edge to him. He's not going to be phased, I don't think, by the moment. And he can knock down 3-point shots as well. I think I'm giving Jalen Tyson a run before Keon Ellis, who looked a little bit uncomfortable out there, to be honest with you, offensively.
We know what works against Brunson. Length, it's your Dyson Daniels, it's your Asar Thompsons of the world. Now, I'm not trying to put, Jalen Tyson in the category of 2 of the best defenders in the league, but he fits the physical profile, maybe even a little bit more than a Dean Wade. And to your point, I think you're a little bit, again, I know Wade hit a couple threes here. I think you respect Tyson's offensive game a little bit more. The one thing, not that I'll push back on it, but Strus is a guy that, is he the ideal defender for Jalen Brunson? Of course not. But I came away from the Detroit series, and look, Cade and Brunson are very different players. but how could you not be impressed with his grit and toughness guarding, a Cade Cunningham? I would at least give Strus a little bit of a run, because that guy has been through the wars. He is not going to get fazed by a moment in Madison Square Garden. So I just to maybe a bit of a different look, but that's another thing. When it was Harden again and again and again, like all the great players in the NBA, you can't let him get comfortable. You got to throw different looks at him. You got to fluster him. And they just weren't able to do that. And again, that's a little bit on the coach, unfortunately, for Cavs fans.
Well, Jonathan, we appreciate you taking the time, man. We have to take another break and then wrap up the show, but always enjoy your work. Knicks Film School, you guys are doing it right, man.
Appreciate
you got watch-alongs, you got the post-game, you got film breakdowns, everything Knicks. Check out their channel and check out all the work you're doing. Thank you so much for joining us.
Appreciate you guys. Thanks so much.
All right, let's take a break. On the other side, Legs and I are going to discuss some X factors really quickly, X factors in both series that could tilt it. I gave my list yesterday. Legs is going to give his list today. What did you have when you were a kid? What did you want to be when you grew up? How about now? Are you thinking about starting your own business? Shopify is the e-commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the U.S. Shopify even powers the All City merch store. Shopify has you covered with website creation, product descriptions, email and social media marketing, and more. They also have AI tools designed to help you maximize sales. So if you're ready to sell, you're ready for Shopify. Turn your big business idea into... with Shopify on your side. Sign up for their $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/allcity. That's shopify.com/allcity. Also want to tell you guys about the presenting sponsor of this show. It's, of course, FanDuel right now. New FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That's right. Turn $5 into $150 in bonus bets just for getting started. And when every possession matters in the playoffs, FanDuel makes it easy to get closer to the action. From player props to your favorite stars to all the tools you need to back them up, FanDuel puts your player research right at your fingertips so you can check stats, trends, and matchups all in one place and make your pick with confidence. It's everything you need all in one app, so don't miss your shot. Head to FanDuel.com/AllCity. It's always that /AllCity. FanDuel.com/AllCity to get started. FanDuel, play your game.
Must be 21 or older and present in select states. For Kansas in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino. Or 18 plus and present in D.C. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York.
All right, back here, final segment of the All-NBA show, short segment for you. Legs, yesterday I gave my X factors for the two conference finals games, and I feel like with some of the injuries, they shift a little bit. I mean, the Dylan Harper thing, I do think shifts who's most important now as terms of X factors in that series, but I'll let you tell us, who do you think are the X factors in the conference finals? Oh, you mute yourself, I think, or did your mic come undone?
I don't think so.
Oh, there you are. You're live again. Now you're back.
Which series do you want to start?
Let's start with the one you're calling tonight, Knicks
okay.
Cavs.
So I think for me, the one for the Cavs is Max Strus. I think Max Strus is critical to the way they play. His motion, movement. He makes you accountable when he's making threes. He didn't have a great shooting night. And his defense is so important on Jalen Brunson because you just need less help. Hard hedges will work against him if Strus is on the floor because he's going to fight over those screens. And so I'm going to go with Strus. I think he's capable of affecting both ends of the floor. And if he gets going from the three-point line, it really adds a dynamic to their offense. For the Knicks, it's OG Anunoby. I mean, I'm waiting to see like what was it last night? Like the quiet. He did play well late in overtime. He had a couple of buckets, but for the most part, did not look super comfortable shooting the basketball, did not look very aggressive. This guy was incredible in the postseason until the point that he got that injury. So was that just one game, kind of get it, shake off the rust and get comfortable moving out there and testing that hamstring out? Now you're going to see tonight, because if he comes out and plays really well offensively, that's going to be a very difficult challenge for the Cavs to slow that down.
I think those are both good picks. I'm curious what you think of Mobley. If they do go to this 5 out or 4 flat, whatever you want to say, to give him space, you go to probably a one big lineup then, and it's probably Mobley for the versatility. So I kind of wonder if he's going to be Mobley out there kind of executes his mission oftentimes, but doesn't always stand out. And I'm curious if he's going to need to, if we get extended minutes where they have to play just one big and it's him. I wonder if you feel he needs to have an offensive impact too.
Yeah, but the only thing is, he just rarely looks hyper aggressive.
Yeah, that's the
offensively,
thing.
And he has such incredibly consistent stat lines. They almost look the same. There's some nights the rebounding might fluctuate. Some nights are better than others. He had 14 boards the other night. That's a great rebounding night, 3 blocks. Like that's great when you get that out of him. 15 points. It's like I feel like it's always in that 18-9 range with a couple of blocks. So I don't know that he has the gear to go, okay, I can get you a 25-point game if that's what it takes. He just is so consistently kind of within himself. I'd love to see him be more aggressive. I feel like I talk about it almost every game that I call that Mobley plays. I'd love to see him, particularly beginning of the game. And in fact, the other night, his first touch, he had a mismatch. Hart was on him. He went right down to the block, and he put his back on him, and he drop-stepped and went up, tried to dunk it, and he got fouled. And I said on the air, you rarely see him go down into the post and call for the ball early in the game. Mm-hmm. And I thought, this is good. This is a great sign. But overall, he took 16 shots, so I guess that's an aggressive number for him. But I hope you're right for them, because I think they're going to need that boost from somewhere. So if it's not Strus, maybe it will be Mobley.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the other series, Spurs Thunder.
Well, it's got to be Ajay Mitchell for the Thunder. There's no question in my mind now, particularly, San Antonio is going to be limited, I think, with their ball handlers. Ajay Mitchell is that guy that's capable, even against this level defense, of getting to his spots, and would not be shocked if he has a 20-point game off the bench. I think this game is going to be really tight, and I think Ajay Mitchell could make the difference, like at a key stretch if Shai's out of the game, to keep their offense going with some buckets that they need to have, because I think this is a game that's going to come down to the wire.
It's a really good one, to be honest with you. And like you said, even if Harper can play, how physical can he be? And if it's slightly less, Ajay Mitchell, I think, struggled in game 1 because that became a battleground that tilted in San Antonio's favor. But if Harper is out, or if Harper is hampered, is Ajay Mitchell able to do what he did in round 1, which is get into the paint over and over again and collapse the defense? So I like that one. Is there any others?
I think the last one would be for the Spurs. So you go, so obviously Castle's got to cut down on turnovers. I'm not going to call a guy like that an X factor. He's a factor. Like he's a star like talented player that's capable of just being dominant. So I'm not going to go with him other than cut down the turnovers. Like that's his X factor. I'm going to go with a guy like Champagnie. They're 4-1 if he makes 3 or more threes in the postseason. He's just an important guy because the shots are going to be there. He had good looks in this game, 1 for 7 from the 3. In a game as important and pivotal as a game 3, and how tight I think it's going to be, could be all the difference, man. You have a 3 or 4 made 3 night, and they're timely. That could be a huge difference for the Spurs. They need additional boost. Vassell played really well. Castle put up good numbers. Wemby at 21 points, of course, obviously, you hope that your star player is better than that. But for me, so say, where else could it come from? Keldon Johnson didn't shoot very well. Maybe it's him. I'm going with Champagnie. He had 7 threes. They were good looks. He knocked down 1. He's a better shooter than that. He gets the similar looks in game 3. He could make 4 or 5. That could be a big difference.
I think it's a big one as well. And you go home. You count on your guys at home to get a little bit of rhythm and momentum, and I think that'll be a big story as well. Just does anything shift in that way emotionally as we get to that part? Before we get out of here, we do have one super chat, but before that even, we have these draft profile videos up on our channel that I encourage everybody to go check out. Highly produced, 5 minutes you can get familiar with draft players. We just dropped right now. We dropped Michael Brown Jr. So we have him, we've got Wagler, and we have all the top 5 picks in there, Acuff and everybody else. Spend a couple minutes. Go check those out. I promise you're going to enjoy the production value and the insight on those. All right, we have a super chat. What do we have? Johnny Keene says, hey, Adam. Question for Legs in the 90s. What was training camp like and lifting weights and off-season, etc.? Compare 90s era to today in professionalism. Would he say the average player is better? I think professionalism is doing too much work here because some of this is just information. We've learned more about the body and how to maintain it and stuff. So I don't know if it's professionalism, but I am curious what you think about the training regimens from 30 years ago as opposed to today.
I mean, it's unrecognizable to guys of my era, man, like what these guys are doing. You can't even believe the number of, well, first of all, very creative, the stuff they come up with to train. I don't necessarily think they're being put through the same physical rigors in training camp and that last few weeks leading up to training camp. Putting your body through that modern players not as much. It's almost always about preservation and lack of contact and all of those things.
Right.
No one has given any of us a definitive answer on why all these guys are having these soft tissue injuries. Okay. Nobody's given us any reasoning. I hope that somebody does a study on this and gives us a damn reason, more so than, it's just the floor's spaced out more. Like, I don't want to hear that. Guys were able to endure, a physical contact at a level in different eras. Like, physical pounding is also like taking a real toll on your body, and they were able to play through a lot of that. These hamstrings and groins and calves that these guys keep coming up with. I just hope somebody comes up with an answer so we can get it cleaned up, because the league needs these guys out there, particularly this time of the year. To see a 20-year-old go down with a hamstring injury, like an athlete like Dylan Harper, is so unusual to see something like that. So I hope that they get all the information we need, man, and they can come up with some sort of conclusion that'll help these guys stay on the court going forward, because the injuries were a real problem this year.
Was there any series so far this year that wasn't affected in a major way by injury in some way? I mean, maybe I'm looking at Detroit, Cleveland, maybe didn't have. I don't know if there was a major one in that series. I'd have to think. I might be forgetting an obvious one, but basically every series has. And if Thunder Spurs comes down to, again, no excuses. You play what you get. But if even that one comes down to Jdub can't go, Harper's out, Fox misses all these games, it's like, man, the league really is just about, can you stay the healthiest? It's like becomes the number one single biggest factor.
Well, that's why you and I have had this conversation on the air before. And so what's the number one most important thing franchises need to do now? And we both said the same thing. It's depth. You have to have depth to survive it, particularly if you're going to go through something like this in the postseason. And these are two of the deepest teams in the league in the Western Conference Finals, and they're going to be tested.
Well, everybody, we appreciate you tuning in all week. What a week of great shows, man, we've had this week. I appreciate Jonathan Macri hopping on. And, of course, who better to be breaking down these games than Tim Legler? Because literally courtside and back courtside tonight, so you need to make sure you're tuned into the broadcast. Turn that volume way up as you hear him calling the game and see which direction this series breaks. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Don't forget, our player prospect videos are up right now. Brand new one just dropped. Please do us a favor. Go check out all of those and hit the like button on the way out.
We all silly like the mayor.